Kids love playing and having fun and are often naive and trusting. Parents want their kids to be happy, but simultaneously worry about them being harmed. I'm not a parent, so I can't imagine the fear of turning around for just a second and having your child disappear from sight, as was the case here. Let's talk about Michael Dunahee. Michael Wayne Dunahee was born on May 12th, 1986, to mom Crystal and dad Bruce. About 3 years later, he was joined by younger sister Caitlin. Michael reportedly loved being a big brother, always wanted to help out with Caitlin and change her diapers. Unfortunately, the siblings wouldn't get to spend much time together. On the morning of Sunday, March 24th, 1991, the Dunahee family headed to a ball field in their hometown of Victoria, British Columbia, so Crystal could play a game of football. On their way to the field, 4-year-old Michael asked his parents if he could go to the playground at the nearby Blanchard Elementary School. At some point between noon and 12:30, Crystal Dunahee sent her son off to play, about 100 yards behind them. She would later say the following: "I made sure he was looking at me, and that he understood he was allowed to go to the park by himself, but he had to stay and not leave with anybody else and wait for his dad to come. I recall having those lovely tummy butterflies, and I regret not following those." While Crystal and the other players were getting their equipment ready, Bruce turned around to check on his son, but didn't see him anywhere. About 50 people started looking for Michael in the area, but there was no sign of him. So his parents went to a nearby house to use their phone and called the police. Police started their investigation by interviewing sex offenders, as well as children who had been at the playground around the time Michael was last seen. One witness reported seeing a man in his late 40s or early 50s there. There were also alleged sightings of Michael with a black man about 5 feet 10 inches tall and 180 pounds. Later on that year, a man fitting this description allegedly tried to kidnap a 7-year-old girl in New Jersey. The girl would later claim she was put into the back of a car where she saw a little boy in the back seat who resembled Michael. None of this has ever been confirmed. There was also a brown van sighted in the area the same day Michael went missing. Police were able to track down the driver, who was interviewed and ultimately ruled out as being involved. In 2008, the Victoria Police offered a $100,000 reward in Michael's case. Both investigators and Michael's parents hoped the money would convince someone to come forward with previously withheld information, but it never did. In 2009, 62-year-old Milwaukee resident Vernon Seitz told a psychiatrist he'd killed a boy in 1959 and that he knew about another child killing. His house was raided after this, where he was found dead of natural causes. Inside his house, police found files on unsolved missing children's cases from the 80s and 90s, including one of Michael Dunahee's missing persons posters. They also found child porn, blonde human hair, and a bone. In life, Seitz had reportedly claimed to be psychic, using his abilities to help out families of children who had been kidnapped. There was no evidence he ever did this, and no other links between him and Michael were ever found. In February 2011, a man in Chase, British Columbia, who looked like Michael was given a DNA test but ruled out as actually being him. In 2012, the book Vanished: The Michael Dunahee Story was released. I will leave a link to that below if you'd like to check it out. In 2013, a man in Surrey, British Columbia, was identified through a tip as bearing a strong resemblance to Michael. He was also ruled out via DNA, as was a man in Vancouver the same year. Michael's disappearance ultimately spawned one of the biggest police investigations in Canadian history. Hundreds of officers would investigate over 11,000 tips and sightings from all over the world. But 30 years later, there's still no trace of Michael. The Dunahees later moved, but kept their same phone number, which Michael had memorized just in case he called. They also set up a bedroom for him in their new house. Growing up, Caitlin Dunahee remembered going to a friend's house down the street and having her mom watch her the whole time, then having her call as soon as she got there. She also remembered having a much earlier curfew than most of her friends. Michael's parents believe he is still alive, that he was kidnapped, and that someone out there knows something. They hope that person will still come forward with what they know. His family has also held the annual Michael Dunahee Keep the Hope Alive run to raise money for the nonprofit Child Find BC, where Crystal Dunahee works. The run went virtual in 2020 due to COVID, but participants still ran, walked, or cycled and uploaded their photos to social media using a hashtag. In March of 2021, the 30th anniversary of Michael's disappearance, a new updated sketch was released by the Victoria Police. They also posted a form that would allow people to submit tips about the case online. So what happened to Michael Dunahee? There aren't too many theories here, but let's go over what I could find. Most people speculating about this case online believe Michael was kidnapped. Some think he was taken outside of Canada or the US. At least one person said he probably would have been found by now if he was still in British Columbia because he's so recognizable. A few people suggested he was kidnapped and raised by someone else, while others suggested he met with foul play. One person actually wondered if Michael was kidnapped by someone he knew rather than a stranger, which most people seem to think. According to this person, if a family member or friend of the Dunahees was at the field or playground and took Michael, their presence wouldn't have aroused much suspicion from anyone, which would allow them to slip under the radar. There has also been some debate about Crystal Dunahee's actions that day. A few people said 100 yards was quite a distance and that she shouldn't have let a 4-year-old play so far away. Others said it wasn't a big deal, or that she likely looked back in hindsight and regretted it. There are also a few people who have suggested Michael was kidnapped by a satanic cult. This theory seemingly came about because he went missing on Palm Sunday and because there was a nearby street called Easter Street. This isn't a theory that most people seem to take seriously, but I did want to include as many theories as I could find, although there are obviously not really that many. Michael Dunahee was 4 years old when he was last seen at a playground in Victoria, British Columbia on March 24th, 1991. Michael is a white male who was 3 feet tall and 51 pounds at the time of his disappearance, with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was last seen wearing a blue hooded jacket with a red lining, a Ninja Turtles t-shirt, multicolored pants, and blue sneakers. If he were alive today, he would be 35 years old. If you have any information about the disappearance of Michael Dunahee, you can contact the Victoria Police Department at 250-995-7654. So this seems like a case that has really frustrated investigators over the years. They want to give Michael's loved ones something, anything that might suggest where he is or what happened to him, but they have very little to go on. Hopefully one day that will change. If you found this video interesting or informative, I would love it if you would like and share it. For more true crime videos and other general dark content, I hope you'll consider subscribing and hitting that bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.